Hi everybody, today I want to talk about an old 1941 movie that was released originally by Paramount Pictures, directed by Stuart Heisler, and it's called The Monster and the Girl. Okay, and this particular film is now available as part of the Universal horror series, even though it was not Universal originally. But for quite some time now, other Paramount films like, say, Murders in the Zoo and some other ones, Island of Lost Souls, a lot of times were featured under the Universal collection, so to speak. I had this movie here on VHS tape for many years and never watched it. This is a first-time viewing for me. It's been sitting around for years and years and decades, really, for me, even though I've never really decided to actually take the time to watch it. I certainly had a lot of years to do so, but I did get it on this particular set here, a Universal Horror Collection Volume 5. And this has a few ape movies with gorillas and so forth. And this one here, there it is, The Monster and the Girl, as you can see. It's on this set. And I finally decided, it's high time I put this on, so let's go. And I put it on, and it's funny because this film, even though it's not Universal, certainly feels in some ways like a Universal film, especially when I tell you some of the actors who are in this. Okay, let me start by telling you some of the performers. First of all, we have Ellen Drew, who I guess is kind of like the girl in the movie, kind of the love interest of the gorilla, which I'll get into in a minute. Also, Paul Lucas, Philip Terry. Now, get a load of this from the Universal stable. Robert Page, who we know from Son of Dracula. Onslow Stevens, who we know from House of Dracula. George Zucco, right, the actual mad scientist in so many movies. Rod Cameron. Bud Jameson. Some of you may not know Bud Jameson by name, but if you watch The Three Stooges, you'll recognize Bud Jameson playing a doorman here. And then you have Edward Van Sloan, who played Professor Van Helsing in the original Dracula. And he's also in Frankenstein. So the cast is really a who's who in a lot of ways. And the movie is only 64 minutes long. But yet there's a lot of star power in there for people like me who watch these movies and will recognize a lot of faces. The story is about a young man. He's a pianist who is framed for murder. Murder he didn't commit. By some gangsters, and then he is executed, unfortunately. But after he's executed, a scientist played by George Zucco, who I mentioned, who has very little to do. So a lot of these people, they just come and go here, these faces we've seen, and have very little to do, including Zucco, who's always an asset in any of these kind of horror monster films. He puts the man's brain into that of a gorilla. Now, the gorilla still retains the mind of the young man and goes around and decides to get his revenge on the people who framed him. And it's zany, but it's interesting, and it's treated, as a lot of times it was done in these early movies, it is treated very seriously, okay? And the beginning of the movie I found was a kind of a slow build-up, and I thought, oh, this might not be too swift. It starts out as a heavy courtroom drama. There's a lot of different perspectives that you see. We see a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different people, and I thought, when is this thing going to kick in? Well, it's only 64 minutes, as I said. Eventually it does kick in, and when it does, it's pretty entertaining. The gorilla gets up and does his thing. Now, we've seen a lot of movies like this, or I'm assuming you have, I have, where you see a lot of men in gorilla suits going around, and the gorilla suits are very cheesy. This gorilla is one of the best gorillas that I've ever seen as far as gorilla costumes go. And you can see in the face, at least I think so, there's a lot of sympathy, a lot in the eyes. You can see that you almost can tell that this man is actually registering through the gorilla's face. And I really think that really is an asset to the movie. I think it looks great, the gorilla in this one. However, the kill scenes, the actual murder scenes, lack really any imagination. There's not really much going on, and you don't really see a lot. A lot of it's left to your imagination as well. And most of the times in old movies like this, that really works out just fine. But for some reason, I thought I wanted to see just a little more of these guys getting their comeuppance. But having said all this, I found it to be a surprisingly entertaining little flick. Nothing great. But certainly worth a watch for anybody who's into the actors that I mentioned, or the Universal films, early horror films, monster films, gorilla films, all that stuff from the 30s and the 40s. It's definitely worth looking at. On a scale of 4 stars, I'm going to give The Monster and the Girl 2.5 stars, which is above average. So I think it's pretty good to look at least once. Thanks, everybody. See you soon, I hope.